Hey, what's up? This is Harry Wagner from Harry's Situations, and today I want to talk to you about how to buy a used vehicle. So in my case, I was looking for a four-wheel drive truck, but you might be looking for your next project, a drift car, a desert racer, or a daily driver. These tips apply to anything, no matter what you're looking for. You may have noticed lately the used car market is pretty nuts, and that's a function of the new car market being limited by a chip shortage. I find dealers are buying up inventory at anywhere they can, at auction or whatever. I had a really hard time finding anything private party for sale. Personally, I like to buy from a private party. I don't want the underbody treatment. I don't want the extended warranty. I want to go out, give you cash, give me the title,
and the transaction,
and I drive off. But that's just one of the tips we're going to get into in this video. So stay with us. Now, you'll notice this truck behind me has terrible tires and wheels on it. I wasn't too worried about that. It wasn't a deal breaker because you know the first thing I'm gonna do is put Nittos on it. This video is actually brought to you by Nitto Tire. If you dig what we're doing here, please subscribe to the Driving Line channel so you won't miss any content in the future. And let me know if you think I should put Terra grapplers, Recon grapplers. There's a bunch of new sizes available for those. Do I need to get aggressive and get like a ridge grappler or even a trail grappler on this? Comment below, let me know. Step one is knowing what you are looking for. In my case, looking for a four-wheel drive Tundra double cab. The market was very competitive. Prices have actually gone up on these more than later model Tundras, just as a result of supply and demand. So the newer trucks, there's a lot more of. They have 100 more horsepower, they have way bigger brakes, bigger rear ends, but it's a much bigger truck. And I already have a Ram truck. I was looking for something that was more kind of Tacoma sized, but this has a 6-foot bed, which I really like. It comes with a V8 engine, 2UZ, 4.7 liter, love those. So those were factors for me that made me consider the Tundra. The likelihood of buying the first vehicle you come across is pretty low because you won't know if it's a good deal or not. Checking the market, maybe not even in your area. Maybe you go and test drive a vehicle that has more miles than you want or is more expensive than you want, but you'll get an idea of what you like and don't like about different models, and that'll help you be an informed buyer so that when the right vehicle comes along, you can pounce on it. Where do you find that right vehicle? Typically, I use like Craigslist. You can use a site called Auto Tempest. It'll search multiple Craigslists within a given radius from a given zip code. I really like that. Craigslist has kind of fallen out of favor because they charge $5 now for automotive ads. Facebook Marketplace has sort of moved in as a result. It can be a bit clunky too, like you can't put in four-wheel drive as your criteria when you're looking for a vehicle on Facebook Marketplace. That was a big deal. I did not want a two-wheel drive truck, and I would see some great deals on double cab Tundras, message the seller, is this two-wheel drive or four-wheel drive? Well, they were always two-wheel drive, that's why it was such a great deal. You might see people too that put like 1, 2, 3 for the pricing because Facebook won't let them put in a given price. That seems weird. If you have other options, comment below, let me know where you're finding vehicles. Which brings me to my next point, be willing to travel. I was actually looking on KSL, which is a Salt Lake specific site, Utah specific site. That's about 8 hours from me in Reno, but I'm not opposed to going 8 hours to buy a vehicle. My last Tundra, I actually flew into Phoenix, drove it home. Don't be afraid to travel a little bit if the deal is right. Now, that brings up its own set of concerns because if you're flying in to buy a vehicle, chances are you bought a one-way ticket, so you sort of limit your negotiating power. I have friends that live there. I asked one of them to go and test drive it for me. They gave me an idea of what I was getting into, so that was really helpful. I got that truck. It was a good enough deal that it made sense for me to fly to Phoenix, buy it, and drive home. I typically don't want to buy something from the Rust Belt. Not only is it far away, but I don't want something that is going to bust my knuckles and the bolts are going to break every time I try and work on it. Step 3, call the seller. I usually start with like a text message or a message on Facebook. Hey, is this still available? Do you have this? And then go from there. I like to talk to them on the phone. You may recall the video I did about Maxi's Subaru Outback XT. We were fortunate enough to buy that in Reno, but there was another one in Portland that I was looking at, was messaging with the seller, actually got him on the phone, and he said, well, if you're driving it back to Reno, I don't know if the tires are gonna make it back to Reno. And you know, it's been in an accident, but you know, it was no big deal. And you really get a feel for the seller when you talk to them on the phone, I think. Use your judgment. Does this person seem trustworthy? Are they telling you everything? I'll usually ask them for the VIN and run a Carfax. That costs about 40 bucks for one vehicle. I think it's cheap insurance personally. You can't even fill up your tank for $40 these days. And you can find out, does the history match what the seller's telling you as far as service records, how long they've owned it, things like that. In my case, this truck has 127,000 miles on it. The seller had done a service at 100,000 miles to replace the timing belt. That's recommended on these engines. Pretty expensive service, so it's nice that he had records of that being done. He didn't have all the records, which was okay. I mean, it'd be ideal, right? That's the person you want to buy from that has a folder that has everything in it, but that's unlikely. So use your judgment as far as if you think the seller is trustworthy or not, and then continue the negotiations from there. Now, when I actually meet up with the seller, I walk around the vehicle, I look underneath it. Is it rusty? Are there spots that look like they've been fixed or they've been covered with new paint? I'll look at the exterior. I want to look under the hood. Best case scenario, when you show up, the vehicle's cold. Maybe you get to the seller's house so you can hear how it starts up when it's cold. Does it tick? Is it hard to turn over? Does it have to crank a long time? Those are things that are nice to know. If the vehicle's warmed up and they meet you somewhere, you might not be able to find that out. I'll check things like the coolant, the brake fluid. Is it super dirty? Is it low? I'll check the engine oil. Obviously, you don't want to find something like a blown head gasket that has oil mixed with the coolant. I'm looking at the interior and the exterior. Hopefully, there's no surprises. The seller has noted anything. In my case, when I talked to the seller of this vehicle, he told me there was a dent in the rear bumper. I've since noticed that most trucks have a dent in the rear bumper, I think largely from backing into a trailer and not really being lined up right, or backing into a pole. That was not a deal breaker for me. A bumper is easy enough to either pound out the dent or just get a new one. When I showed up, there were a few things that he hadn't told me about. One is that the tire pressure light is on the dash, and the other one is that the door handle on the driver's side is basically ripped out. I mentioned to him, would have been nice to know ahead of time. That's going to come up later in negotiations if you decide you want this vehicle. The first thing I'm doing is just sort of taking note of what's there, making a decision of, is this something I want to pursue or not? And just kind of keeping in the back of my mind anything that might be a bargaining point in the future if I decide I do want this vehicle. So now the test drive, you want to check the radio, you want to check the heat, the AC, the windows go up and down. Use all the controls to make sure that they work. I have been guilty of selling a vehicle in the winter that had AC that did not work very well, and it didn't come up and I didn't disclose it. You might think less of me because of that. Now that it's warming up, hopefully that person isn't cursing me over that decision. When I'm on the test drive, I generally want to be on a variety of different surfaces at different speeds. So that includes driving through town, getting on the freeway. I want to know how smoothly the vehicle accelerates, how the transmission shifts and it goes through gears. Does the steering feel tight? Do the brakes pulse when you hit them? These things might not necessarily be deal breakers for you, but they're things you need to know ahead of time. In my case, I do not want to do upholstery work. I do not want to do body work. Even if I had a blown transmission, I might still buy the vehicle if it was a good enough deal, thinking I can swap that out. I've done that in the past. I have bought trucks with bad transmissions. Not a big problem. I don't want something that the body's all beat up and it needs body work and a paint job, because those are not things that I'm interested in doing. But you might be the opposite. You might be a paint and body guy. And you see something that the clear coat's fading, and you think, I'd drive that, it's in perfect mechanical condition. So keep that in mind as you're looking for the right vehicle for you and your budget. Now, it's not really one of the steps in my buying process, but I do want to talk a bit about modifications. Traditionally, modifications were something that you could not count on to increase the purchase of a vehicle when you went to sell it. And personally, I would rather have a less modified vehicle. Not that I feel like I'm the only one who knows how to do something. The person probably didn't modify it in the same manner that I want. That could be the execution, that could be the quality of the products. I want something pretty close to stock. That's like a blank canvas for me and I have a vision. You might want to buy something that's heavily modified. Typically, you can get a better deal than buying all the parts yourself. That's changed a little bit. I see some people commanding a premium for overland vehicles that have a bunch of accessories on them. Whether they're getting that money or not, I don't know, but it always surprises me when someone wants $65,000 for a used Tacoma. Maybe that's the market. After you've done the test drive, if you decide you want the vehicle, hopefully you brought cash. And hopefully you ask the seller, do they have a clean title in hand when you were earlier in the process and you were talking to them. If you need to finance the vehicle, that definitely complicates matters. You're gonna have to go to your bank, or if they have a lien against the vehicle, that complicates matters because you need to pay them and they need to pay that off before they can get the title. Now, those things aren't deal breakers, but they're gonna make things a little more complicated. The easiest situation is you show up with cash, they have the title in hand, and you exchange. You want to make things as easy on people as possible because that will help you in negotiations, particularly if it's a vehicle that's hot and you want to jump on a deal. I wait until I'm done with the test drive before I even talk about money. Now, in this case, there was the issue with the TPMS light, there was the issue with the door handle that I didn't know about ahead of time. I bought enough cash that I could pay the seller's asking price, and if it was exactly as promised, I would have been happy to do so. But given these issues, I asked the seller to knock off a few $100s. We actually looked up what it would cost to fix these things and agreed upon a price to drop it down, and I was happy with that. That's the time when I want to make negotiations. I want to show them cash because cash is king, right? That's the best way to ensure you get this vehicle and they're not waiting for the next person who might be calling them while you're on the test drive. If you've pulled a bunch of money out of the bank and you've driven far or even flown in to buy a vehicle, you might feel obligated, but don't be. If it's not the right fit for you, if things aren't as promised, don't be afraid to walk away. You're gonna spend a lot of money and regret it if you do, and sometimes it's better to just cut your losses. As Kenny Rogers said, you gotta know when to hold them and know when to fold them. In this case, I know when to walk away and when to run. That's it for this video. Did you like it? Did you learn something about buying a used car? I sure hope so. Comment below and let me know what your best tips are for finding deals on used vehicles. And don't forget to like and subscribe.
Thanks for watching Driving Line. If you guys like this video, consider subscribing to our channel so you'll never miss any of the content we create here. Whether you're into trucks, Jeeps, imports, domestic vehicles, or anything in between, we are here to fuel your passion. So hit that subscribe button and we'll see you guys next time.